6 months later, Kate stood in the same courtyard where her world had changed during those difficult nights with Charlotte. The autumn air was crisp, and fallen leaves created a golden carpet around the fountain where she and James had shared their most important conversations. Charlotte, now a happy, alert baby, was securely strapped to Kate's chest in a carrier, babbling contentedly as she watched the colorful leaves dance in the breeze. The palace had felt different ever since the incident with James's transfer. The new protocols Kate and William had worked with Commander Harrison to develop had created a subtle but meaningful shift in the household atmosphere. Staff members seemed more relaxed, more willing to offer genuine support during challenging moments. The rigid formality remained for official occasions, but daily life had become more human. Kate was returning from a walk in the private gardens when she saw James approaching the main entrance for his shift change. Over the months, they had developed an easy friendship that remained professional while acknowledging the bond formed during Charlotte's difficult early weeks. "Good afternoon, Your Highness," James said with his characteristic warm smile. "How is Miss Charlotte enjoying the autumn weather?" "She loves it," Kate replied, adjusting Charlotte's hat as the baby gurgled happily. "I think she remembers these outdoor walks from when she was smaller." "Babies often do," James agreed. "My sister says her youngest still settles down fastest when they're outside, even though he's 3 now." Kate marveled at how natural these conversations had become. The palace protocols now explicitly encouraged staff to engage in supportive dialogue with family members, as long as both parties were comfortable with it. The change had been subtle but significant, creating an environment where human connections could flourish alongside professional relationships. "James, can I ask you something?" Kate said, settling onto the bench near the fountain where they had shared so many meaningful talks. "Of course," he replied, joining her at a respectful distance. "Do you ever think about that night when everything started? When Charlotte couldn't stop crying, and I felt like such a failure as a mother?" James smiled thoughtfully. "I think about it often, actually. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was so real. It reminded me why this job matters." "How do you mean?" "When I first started working here, I thought my job was to protect the institution," James explained, "to maintain security for the royal family as symbols. But that night, I realized my job is actually to protect real people who happen to carry enormous responsibilities. The institution only matters because of the people in it." Kate felt moved by his perspective. "I've been thinking about that too, about how isolated I felt before, and how much that changed after our conversations." Charlotte made happy sounds and reached toward the fountain, fascinated by the movement of water just as she had been as a tiny infant. Kate marveled at how much her daughter had grown and changed, and how much she herself had evolved as a mother. "I have something to tell you," Kate said. "William and I have been talking about making some larger changes to how the household operates." James looked curious, but didn't press for details, maintaining the respectful boundaries that characterized their friendship. "We want to create more opportunities for the kind of support you gave me," Kate continued. "Not just for us, but for staff members who might be going through difficult times themselves." "That sounds wonderful," James said sincerely. "We're establishing a new position, a staff support coordinator who will help connect people with resources when they need them. Someone who can offer the kind of practical wisdom and human understanding that made such a difference for me." Kate paused, watching James's reaction carefully. "We were hoping you might consider taking that position." James looked genuinely surprised. "Your Highness, I'm honored that you would think of me, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like that." "You're exactly qualified," Kate said firmly. "You have the empathy to understand what people are going through, the wisdom to offer helpful perspective, and the discretion to handle sensitive situations appropriately." "But I'm a security guard," James protested. "I don't have training in counseling or human resources." "You have something more valuable than training," Kate replied. "You have the ability to see people as human beings first, regardless of their titles or circumstances. That's what I needed during Charlotte's difficult period, and that's what this position would provide for others." Charlotte babbled and clapped her hands, as if agreeing with her mother's assessment. Kate laughed and kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Think about it," Kate continued. "You wouldn't be leaving security entirely. This would be a new department that works closely with existing staff support systems. But you'd be helping people navigate challenges that don't fit into traditional categories. James was quiet for a long moment, considering the offer. What made you think of creating this position? Honestly, you did, Kate said. After our conversations helped me so much, I started paying attention to how many people in the household might be struggling with things they can't talk about officially. New staff members who are overwhelmed, longtime employees dealing with family crises, people who just need someone to listen without judgment. And you think I could help with that? I know you could, Kate said confidently. You've already proven it. Kate adjusted Charlotte in her carrier, enjoying the way her daughter's presence made even serious conversations feel lighter and more hopeful. There's something else, Kate continued. Part of the reason this position matters to us is that it represents the kind of leadership we want to embody. We want to be royals who care about people as individuals, not just as cogs in a machine. James smiled. Your Highness, you already are that kind of royal. What you did to prevent my transfer proved that. That was just the beginning, Kate said. We want to build a household culture where kindness is valued as much as efficiency, where people feel supported rather than just managed. It sounds like an amazing opportunity, James said thoughtfully. But can I ask why this matters so much to you personally? Kate thought about how to explain the transformation that had begun during those difficult nights with Charlotte. Before Charlotte was born, I thought being royal meant having everything under control all the time. I thought showing uncertainty or needing help was a sign of weakness. Charlotte gurgled and grabbed at Kate's necklace, providing a perfect illustration of how unpredictable and wonderful real life could be. Those conversations with you taught me that the opposite is true, Kate continued. Being genuine about challenges and accepting support when needed, that's actually a strength. And I want to create an environment where other people can experience that same support. What would my day-to-day responsibilities look like? James asked. That's something we'd develop together, Kate replied. But I imagine it would involve being available for informal conversations, connecting people with appropriate resources, and helping to bridge the gap between formal palace protocols and real human needs. Would I still live on the palace grounds? If you wanted to, Kate said. We'd provide housing and a significant increase in salary, plus training opportunities to develop whatever skills would be most helpful. James looked out at the fountain, clearly thinking through the implications of such a major change. Kate respected his need to consider the decision carefully. Your Highness, this is an incredible opportunity, he said finally. But I need to ask, are you sure this isn't just about feeling grateful for what happened with Charlotte? I don't want you to create a position just because you feel you owe me something. Kate appreciated his directness and his concern about her motivations. James, the gratitude is real, and it was the inspiration for this idea. But William and I have spent months researching and planning this position because we believe it fills a genuine need in the household. What kind of research? We've talked to staff members at all levels about their experiences and challenges. We've studied how other organizations support employee well-being. We've consulted with experts in workplace psychology and human resources. Kate shifted Charlotte to a more comfortable position, marveling at how much easier it had become to handle her daughter during conversations. What we learned is that the palace is full of people dealing with normal life challenges, aging parents, struggling marriages, financial concerns, health issues, but they often feel like they can't seek help because they work for the royal family. They think they need to be perfect all the time. I can understand that feeling, James said. Exactly. And that's where someone like you could make a real difference. You've already shown that you can offer support while maintaining appropriate boundaries. You understand both the unique pressures of working here and the universal challenges of being human. Charlotte had fallen asleep in her carrier, lulled by the gentle motion of Kate's movements and the soothing sound of the fountain. Kate looked down at her peaceful daughter and felt grateful for how much had changed since those difficult early days. There's one more thing, Kate said softly. If you take this position, you'd be helping to create the kind of workplace where Charlotte and George will eventually learn to work with people. I want them to grow up seeing kindness and support as normal parts of professional relationships. James smiled at this. That's a beautiful vision, Your Highness. So will you consider it? I'll definitely consider it, James promised. Can I have some time to discuss it with my family and think through all the implications? Of course, Kate said. Take all the time you need. This is a big decision. As they prepared to part ways, Kate felt a deep sense of satisfaction about the conversation. Regardless of James's decision, the fact that such a position was being created represented real progress in her vision for royal life. James, she said as he stood to return to his duties, thank you. Not just for considering this opportunity, but for everything that led to it. Those conversations during Charlotte's difficult period changed my understanding of what it means to be both a mother and a royal. Thank you, Your Highness, James replied, for trusting me with your struggles and for showing me that supporting people is the most important part of any job. As Kate walked back toward the palace entrance, Charlotte sleeping peacefully against her chest, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with a crying baby and a mother at the end of her rope, but it had evolved into something much larger, a vision of royal service that prioritized human connection alongside traditional duty. The fountain continued its gentle bubbling behind them, a constant presence that had witnessed countless conversations and would continue to provide a peaceful backdrop for future connections. Kate smiled, knowing that whether James accepted the position or not, the changes they had begun would continue to ripple through the household, creating space for the kind of authentic relationships that made both work and life more meaningful. That evening, as Kate tucked Charlotte into her crib, she marveled at how peaceful bedtime had become. The tiny infant who had once cried for hours was now a contented baby who went to sleep easily, secure in the knowledge that her needs would be met with patience and love. The transformation felt symbolic of larger changes in Kate's life. She had learned to trust herself as a mother, to seek help when needed, and to value genuine human connections over perfect public appearances. Most importantly, she had learned that being royal didn't mean being superhuman. It meant being human in service of something larger than yourself. As she turned off the nursery light and headed to her own bedroom, Kate felt grateful for the unexpected ways that challenges could lead to growth, and for the reminder that sometimes the most important conversations happen in quiet moments when nobody else is watching. 2 weeks had passed since Kate's midnight conversations with James, and Charlotte had transformed into the peaceful baby everyone expected a royal infant to be. She slept for longer stretches, cried only when hungry or tired, and charmed visitors with alert eyes and sweet smiles. The crisis that had consumed Kate's world seemed like a distant memory, but the lessons learned during those difficult nights remained vivid. Kate was in her private office reviewing correspondence when Mrs. Patterson knocked and entered with a concerned expression. Your Highness, there's been a development you should know about, the nanny said carefully. It concerns Mr. Mitchell, the guard you've spoken with recently. Kate felt her stomach drop. What kind of development? He's being transferred to another posting, Mrs. Patterson explained. Apparently, there were questions raised about appropriate boundaries with the royal family. Kate set down her pen, feeling a surge of anger and protectiveness. Who raised questions? I believe it came from the head of security. Someone reported that Mr. Mitchell had been seen having extended conversations with you during his night duties. Kate realized that their innocent conversations had been observed and misinterpreted through the lens of rigid royal protocol. The idea that James was being punished for showing basic human kindness made her furious. When is this transfer supposed to happen? Kate asked. This afternoon, Your Highness. He's being moved to day security at one of the smaller royal residences. Kate stood up immediately. I need to speak with the head of security right now. Your Highness, perhaps it would be better to let this matter resolve quietly, Mrs. Patterson suggested gently. Drawing attention to it might only make things more difficult for Mr. Mitchell. But Kate was already heading for the door. She had learned over the past few weeks that sometimes the right thing to do wasn't the diplomatic thing to do. James had helped her through one of the most challenging periods of her life, and she wasn't going to let him be transferred without a fight. Kate found Commander Harrison, the head of palace security, in his office reviewing staffing assignments. He looked up with surprise when she knocked and entered without waiting for permission. Your Highness, he said, standing quickly. How can I help you? I understand you're transferring James Mitchell, Kate said directly, not bothering with pleasantries. Commander Harrison's expression became carefully neutral. Yes, Your Highness. We felt a change of assignment would be beneficial for all parties. Beneficial how? Kate asked. He's an exemplary guard who takes his duties seriously. Of course, Your Highness. However, there have been reports of inappropriate familiarity with members of the royal family. Kate felt her temper rising. Inappropriate familiarity? He spoke to me as a human being when I was struggling with my daughter. That's not inappropriate. It's compassionate. Commander Harrison shifted uncomfortably. Your Highness, I understand that Mr. Mitchell may have meant well, but there are protocols in place for the protection of the royal family. Staff members who become too personally involved can create security risks. Security risks? Kate repeated incredulously. He's been nothing but professional and helpful. What exactly are you afraid of? Your Highness, when staff members develop personal relationships with royals, it can lead to conflicts of interest, breaches of confidentiality, or inappropriate behavior down the line. We prefer to maintain clear boundaries. Kate realized that this wasn't really about James at all. It was about the palace's obsession with control and their fear of any relationship that didn't fit neatly into their prescribed categories. Commander Harrison, Kate said firmly, I want to be very clear about something. James Mitchell showed kindness and support during a difficult time in my life. He never overstepped any boundaries, never asked for special treatment, and never made me feel uncomfortable. If you transfer him because of that, you're sending a message that staff members should ignore the human needs of the people they serve. Your Highness, I understand your perspective, but, I'm not finished, Kate interrupted, her voice carrying an authority she rarely used. James helped me become a better mother and a better person during those conversations. If the palace cannot accommodate basic human decency between staff and family members, then perhaps we need to reconsider some of these protocols. Commander Harrison looked genuinely uncomfortable now. Your Highness, with respect, these policies exist for good reasons. We've seen situations in the past where personal relationships between staff and royals have led to complications. What kind of complications? Kate pressed. Breach of confidentiality, inappropriate media contact, attempts to leverage the relationship for personal gain. The commander listed. Kate felt a flash of insight. Have any of those things happened with James? Well, no, but, has he ever tried to contact the media? No, Your Highness. Has he asked for special favors or treatment? No. Has he shared any private information about our family with anyone? Commander Harrison hesitated. Not that we're aware of, but, Your Highness, the protocols exist to prevent these situations from developing in the first place. Kate took a deep breath, trying to channel the confidence she had developed over the past few weeks. Commander Harrison, I appreciate the importance of security protocols, but I also believe in the importance of treating good people fairly. James Mitchell helped me during a difficult time by being kind and human. Punishing him for that sends exactly the wrong message about what kind of household we want to run. What would you suggest, Your Highness? Kate realized that this was her moment to demonstrate the kind of leadership she wanted to embody, one that balanced security needs with human decency. I suggest that instead of transferring James, we use this as an opportunity to review our protocols, Kate said. Maybe there's a way to maintain appropriate boundaries while still allowing for basic human kindness. Commander Harrison looked skeptical. Your Highness, the current protocols have served the royal household well for many years. Have they? Kate asked. Or have they created an environment where people are afraid to show basic compassion because they might be punished for it? Before Commander Harrison could respond, there was a knock on the door. William entered, looking surprised to find Kate in the security office. Kate, is everything all right? Kate looked at her husband, realizing that this moment would define something important about their marriage and their approach to royal life. William, I need your support on something, she said. James Mitchell, one of the guards, is being transferred because he showed kindness to me during Charlotte's difficult period. I think that's wrong. William looked between Kate and Commander Harrison, quickly assessing the situation. What kind of kindness? He talked to me like a normal person when I was struggling, Kate explained. He shared advice from his own family's experiences and helped me realize that being a mother is challenging for everyone, not just me. William was quiet for a moment, and Kate held her breath, waiting for his response. Would he support the traditional protocol, or would he stand with her? Commander Harrison, William said finally, can you explain to me exactly what security risk Mr. Mitchell poses? Your Highness, it's not about the specific individual, the commander replied. It's about maintaining consistent boundaries that prevent potential problems. But has he actually caused any problems? William pressed. Well, no, sir, but, then, perhaps the problem isn't with Mr. Mitchell, William concluded. Perhaps the problem is with protocols that punish kindness. Kate felt a surge of love and gratitude for her husband. He was backing her up when it mattered most. What do you propose? William asked Kate. Kate realized that this was her chance to make a real difference in how their household operated. I think we should keep James at his current posting and develop new guidelines that allow for appropriate human interaction while maintaining security standards. What would those guidelines look like? Commander Harrison asked, clearly recognizing that he was outnumbered. Kate had been thinking about this since Mrs. Patterson first told her about the transfer. Staff members should feel free to offer comfort and support during personal crises, as long as they maintain professionalism and confidentiality. Conversations that help family members cope with normal life challenges should be encouraged, not punished. And how would we ensure that these interactions don't cross boundaries? The commander asked. The same way we ensure that any professional relationship doesn't cross boundaries, William said. We trust people to use good judgment and address problems if they actually arise, rather than creating punitive policies based on hypothetical concerns. Kate felt proud of how William was handling the situation. He was supporting her while also offering practical solutions. Commander Harrison, Kate continued, I want you to know that I understand the importance of security, but I also understand the importance of humanity. James helped me become a better mother by treating me like a normal person facing normal challenges. That's not a security risk. It's exactly what we should want from our staff. The commander looked thoughtful. Your Highness, if you and the Duke feel strongly about this, we can certainly reconsider the transfer. We do, Kate said firmly. And we'd like to work with you to develop policies that protect both security and basic human decency. Very well, Commander Harrison agreed. I'll cancel the transfer and schedule a meeting to discuss revised protocols. After they left the security office, William took Kate's hand as they walked back toward their private quarters. I'm proud of you, he said simply. For what? For standing up for what's right. For fighting for someone who helped you. For refusing to let protocol override humanity. Kate felt a warmth spread through her chest. I couldn't let them punish James for being kind to me. It felt like betraying everything he taught me about accepting help and trusting that most people have good intentions. What did he teach you? William asked, genuinely curious. Kate thought about how to summarize the lessons from those midnight conversations. That being uncertain doesn't make me weak. That asking for help is smart, not shameful. That even royal mothers are just people trying to do their best. Those sound like important lessons, William observed. They are, Kate agreed. And I realized today that if I didn't fight for him, I'd be betraying those lessons. I'd be choosing protocol over people, which is exactly what I don't want our household to represent. They had reached their private sitting room, where Charlotte was napping peacefully in her bassinet. Kate looked down at her daughter, marveling at how much had changed since those difficult early weeks. Do you think we made the right choice? Kate asked. Absolutely, William said without hesitation. James helped our family when we needed it. The least we can do is ensure he's treated fairly in return. Kate settled into the chair next to Charlotte's bassinet, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Standing up for James had been about more than one person's job transfer. It had been about defining what kind of leaders they wanted to be and what kind of environment they wanted to create. That evening, as Kate was reading to George before bedtime, Mrs. Patterson knocked and entered with a smile. Your Highness, I thought you'd like to know that Mr. Mitchell will be continuing his regular duties, she said. There was quite a bit of discussion among the staff about your intervention on his behalf. What kind of discussion? Kate asked. The positive kind, Mrs. Patterson assured her. People are saying it shows that you care about treating staff fairly. It's created a lot of goodwill. Kate felt pleased that her actions had been received well, but, more importantly, she felt that she had done the right thing regardless of how it was received. Later that night, as she walked through the palace corridors checking on the children, Kate passed by the window that overlooked the courtyard where she and James had shared their conversations. She could see him making his rounds, steady and professional as always. Tomorrow, she decided, she would find a way to thank him properly for everything he had taught her. Not just about mothering Charlotte, but about being true to herself even within the constraints of royal life. The palace felt different to Kate now, less like a fortress that separated her from real life, and more like a home where real people worked together with mutual respect and care. It was a small change, perhaps, but it felt like the beginning of something important. 3 days later, Kate found herself in the palace gardens at 2 in the morning, once again walking with a crying Charlotte. The night air was warmer now, carrying the scent of blooming roses and the distant sound of London traffic beyond the palace walls. Charlotte's crying had evolved over the past few days. The desperate, frantic wails had given way to tired, frustrated protests that seemed to express her confusion with the world around her. Kate had learned to read the different cries. Hunger sounded different from tiredness, which sounded different from the mysterious discomfort that seemed to strike without warning. Tonight felt different somehow. Charlotte's cries were less intense, and she seemed to be looking around at her surroundings with growing awareness. Kate wondered if this might be a sign that they were moving through whatever phase had been troubling her daughter. As she walked past the guard station, Kate found herself hoping to see James again. Their brief conversation had been the most helpful interaction she had experienced since Charlotte's difficult period began. The nannies and doctors meant well, but they spoke in professional terms about sleep schedules and feeding routines. James had simply acknowledged that sometimes being a parent was hard, and that acknowledgement had been more valuable than any expert advice. Sure enough, James emerged from the shadows near the main gate, his face brightening when he saw Kate and Charlotte approaching. "Evening, Your Highness," he said quietly. "How are our 2 ladies doing tonight?" Kate smiled at his casual warmth. "Better, I think. She's been crying for only an hour tonight instead of 3. "Progress," James observed. "My sister always said the improvement came gradually. Then, suddenly, they fell into step together, walking the familiar path around the fountain." Charlotte's cries had softened to occasional whimpers, and her eyes were alert rather than scrunched shut with distress. "Can I ask you something?" Kate said as they settled on the bench near the fountain. "Of course. How do you do it? Stay so calm and normal when everything around here is so formal and complicated?" James considered this thoughtfully. "I suppose I remember that underneath all the titles and protocol, we're all just people trying to do our best. The crown doesn't change that. Sometimes I forget that," Kate admitted. "I get so caught up in doing things the right way that I lose track of what actually matters." "What matters to you?" James asked simply. Kate looked down at Charlotte, who was finally beginning to relax against her shoulder. "Being a good mother. Raising children who are kind and grounded despite all of this." She gestured at the palace around them. "Then, you're succeeding," James said. "I've watched you with Prince George during his outdoor time. The way he looks at you, the way he runs to you when he's excited about something, that's not about your title. That's about who you are as his mother." Kate felt a warmth spread through her chest. She rarely received feedback about her mothering that wasn't filtered through royal expectations or public relations concerns. "The press writes about how I'm adapting to royal motherhood," Kate said. "But, really, I'm just trying to figure out how to be anyone's mother at all." "That's what every new mother goes through," James assured her. "The setting might be different, but the feelings are universal." Charlotte had grown quiet, her breathing deep and even against Kate's shoulder. The fountain's gentle bubbling seemed to have worked its magic once again. "Tell me about your family," Kate said, settling more comfortably on the bench. "Your sister with the crying baby, how is she doing now?" James's face softened with affection. "Sarah's brilliant. She has 3 kids now, and you'd never know she once called me sobbing at 2 in the morning because she was convinced she was the worst mother in the world." "What changed?" "Time mostly, and accepting help when she needed it. She learned that asking for support didn't make her weak, it made her smart." Kate absorbed this wisdom, thinking about how difficult it had been for her to accept help from the nannies, from her mother, even from William. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night," Kate continued. About babies not coming with instruction manuals. It's made me realize how much pressure I've been putting on myself to get everything right immediately. The thing about instruction manuals, James said with a slight smile, is that they assume every situation is the same. But every baby is different. Every family is different. You have to write your own manual as you go. Even royal babies, especially royal babies, James said. They'll grow up with unique challenges that no book could prepare them for. But if they have parents who love them and do their best, that's what really matters. Kate found herself thinking about her own childhood, growing up in a loving but ordinary family where mistakes were learning opportunities rather than public relations disasters. She wanted to give her children that same sense of security, even within the constraints of royal life. How do you think I should handle the public side of all this? Kate asked. Everyone expects me to make motherhood look effortless. James was quiet for a moment, clearly taking the question seriously. If I may say so, Your Highness, I think people would connect with honesty more than perfection. Everyone has been up all night with a crying baby. Not everyone gets to live in a palace, but everyone knows what it feels like to wonder if they're doing it right. Kate considered this. The royal family's public image had always been carefully managed, with personal struggles kept private. But maybe James was right that some honesty about the universal challenges of parenthood might actually strengthen her connection with the public rather than weakening it. You think people would understand if they knew this was difficult for me too? I think they'd respect you more for it, James said confidently. Perfect people are hard to relate to. Real people who do their best despite challenges, that's inspiring. Charlotte stirred slightly in Kate's arms, making small contented sounds rather than cries. The change was remarkable, and Kate wondered if her own growing comfort and confidence was somehow communicating itself to her daughter. She's getting better, Kate observed with amazement. So are you, James pointed out. What do you mean? You're more relaxed tonight. Less desperate. Babies pick up on that energy. Kate realized he was right. She had come outside tonight not in crisis mode, but simply because it was a pleasant evening and fresh air seemed like a good idea. The desperation and panic of previous nights had given way to a calmer acceptance of Charlotte's needs. My mother came to visit yesterday, Kate shared. She told me that some babies just need more time to adjust to the world. She said I was trying too hard to fix something that might just need patience. Wise woman, James said. She also said something interesting about the way I was handling things. She pointed out that I was getting good advice from unexpected sources. Kate looked at James meaningfully. James shifted slightly, suddenly, looking uncertain. Your Highness, I hope I haven't overstepped. I know the staff isn't supposed to offer personal opinions about family matters. James, Kate said firmly, you've been more helpful than anyone else in the entire palace. Please don't apologize for treating me like a normal person who was struggling. It's just, I know there are protocols about staff boundaries with the royal family. Kate felt a pang of sadness at this reminder of the artificial barriers that separated her from the people around her daily. What if I said that as Charlotte's mother, I'm grateful for your kindness, regardless of protocols? James smiled, looking relieved. Then, I'd say it's been my honor to help, Your Highness. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Charlotte sleep peacefully in Kate's arms. The palace grounds were quiet except for the fountain and the distant sound of night traffic. Can I tell you something? Kate said eventually. Of course. Before Charlotte was born, I thought I had everything figured out. I'd mastered royal protocol, learned to give speeches, handled state visits. I was confident and capable. And then, this tiny person arrived and made me feel completely clueless again. Maybe that's not a bad thing, James suggested. Maybe learning to be unsure makes you more human. Kate laughed softly. That's not typically considered a virtue in royal circles. Maybe it should be, James replied. The royals people love most are the ones who seem real. Kate thought about this as she looked up at the palace windows, many of them dark as the household slept around them. Behind those windows were dozens of staff members who worked tirelessly to maintain the image and operations of royal life. But how many of them ever got to see the real people behind the titles? James, do you mind if I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Why did you choose to work here? In security, I mean. James considered this. Honestly, I wanted to serve something bigger than myself, but I wasn't cut out for the military. Palace security felt like a way to protect something important without having to carry a rifle. Do you like it? Most days, he said thoughtfully. It's not exciting work, but it feels meaningful. And, occasionally, I get to have conversations like this that remind me why the institution matters. How does it matter? Kate asked, genuinely curious about his perspective. The royal family represents continuity and stability in a way that politics can't, James explained. When everything else is changing and uncertain, there's something comforting about knowing some traditions endure. But only if the people carrying on those traditions remain connected to what ordinary life is like. Kate felt moved by his thoughtful answer. I never thought about it that way. Conversations like tonight prove that you understand that connection, James continued. You're not trying to be superhuman. You're just trying to be a good mother, which is what any woman in your position would do. Charlotte made a small sound and opened her eyes, looking around with calm curiosity rather than distress. For the first time in days, she seemed genuinely content in Kate's arms. Hello, sweetheart, Kate murmured to her daughter. Feeling better tonight? Charlotte made soft cooing sounds, reaching one tiny hand toward the fountain's gentle lights. She seemed fascinated by the movement of water rather than overwhelmed by it. She's different tonight, Kate observed with wonder. Maybe she just needed time to get used to everything, James suggested. The world must seem pretty overwhelming when you're only a few weeks old. Kate thought about how overwhelming the world often felt to her, even as a grown woman with every advantage. Maybe Charlotte's struggles had been less about physical discomfort and more about learning to process all the sensations and experiences of being alive. I should probably get her back inside, Kate said reluctantly. But, James, thank you. For tonight and for the other night. You've helped me remember that it's okay to not have everything figured out. Anytime, Your Highness, James replied, standing as Kate rose from the bench. And, if you don't mind me saying so, I think you're doing better than you give yourself credit for. As they walked back toward the palace entrance, Kate felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced since Charlotte was born. Her daughter was finally settling into the world, and Kate was finally learning to trust her own instincts as a mother. James, she said as they reached the door, I hope we can continue these conversations sometimes. It means a lot to have someone to talk to who sees me as a person first. I'd be honored, Your Highness, James replied with genuine warmth. Kate carried Charlotte back to the nursery, where the baby went down in her crib without protest for the first time in over a week. As Kate stood watching her daughter sleep peacefully, she reflected on how much had changed in just a few days. She was still a princess with public obligations and royal protocols to follow. But she was also a mother learning to trust herself, a woman who had discovered that asking for help and accepting uncertainty didn't make her weak, it made her human. And perhaps, as James had suggested, being human was exactly what her role required. Kate woke 3 hours later to Charlotte's familiar cries echoing through the baby monitor. Sunlight streamed through the heavy curtains, and she could hear the distant sounds of the palace coming to life, staff preparing for the day, groundskeepers tending to the gardens, and the subtle hum of activity that surrounded royal life. She padded to the nursery, where Charlotte was working herself into full distress mode again. Mrs. Patterson had already left for the day, replaced by Sarah, the morning nanny who greeted Kate with a sympathetic smile. She's been fussing for about 20 minutes, Your Highness, Sarah reported. I've tried feeding and changing, but she seems to want her mummy. Kate lifted Charlotte from the crib, noting that the baby settled slightly at her touch, but didn't stop crying entirely. The progress from last night felt fragile, like it might disappear at any moment. Perhaps a bath might help? Sarah suggested. Some babies find warm water soothing. Kate nodded, though she dreaded the logistics of bathing a squirming, crying infant. Royal babies receive baths in specially designed tubs with exact water temperatures and organic, hypoallergenic products that had been tested and approved by the royal physicians. Even something as simple as a bath required coordination and preparation. As Sarah prepared the bathing area, Kate found herself thinking about James's words from the night before. His sister had dealt with a crying baby by driving around in her car, a simple, practical solution that worked for their family. Kate wondered what other unconventional methods might help Charlotte, If only she felt free to try them. The bath was a disaster. Charlotte screamed louder when they lowered her into the warm water, her tiny body rigid with distress. Kate tried to remain calm, but she could feel her anxiety rising again. Even with Sarah's expert help, nothing they did seemed to comfort the baby. "Perhaps we should try again later," Sarah suggested diplomatically after several minutes of increased crying. Kate wrapped Charlotte in a soft towel, feeling defeated once again. The brief confidence she had gained from last night's conversation was already crumbling under the reality of another difficult day. William appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his formal military uniform for the veterans event. He looked tired but handsome, every inch the composed prince the public expected him to be. "Rough night?" he asked, kissing Kate's forehead and looking down at their crying daughter with concern. "3 hours of this," Kate said, not bothering to hide her exhaustion. She finally went to sleep around 3:30. "I'm sorry I wasn't more help," William said sincerely. "The event today is important, but maybe I could cancel the afternoon appointments and come home early?" Kate shook her head. "You can't cancel royal engagements because our baby won't stop crying. The press would have a field day." William frowned. "The press doesn't need to know why I'm adjusting my schedule. And Charlotte is more important than any appointment." "Is she?" Kate asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. William looked genuinely shocked. "Of course she is." "Kate, what kind of question is that?" Kate felt tears coming again. "I just feel like everything else comes first. The schedule, the appearances, the image we're supposed to maintain. Sometimes I wonder if we're allowed to just be parents." William set down his briefcase and took Charlotte from Kate's arms. The baby's cries softened slightly at the change, though she continued to fuss. "We are being parents," William said firmly. "This is what it looks like, messy and exhausting and nothing like what people expect." "But we can't let people see that," Kate pointed out. "We have to pretend everything is perfect all the time." William was quiet for a moment, gently bouncing Charlotte as he considered Kate's words. "Maybe we don't have to pretend as much as we think we do." Before Kate could ask what he meant, William's private secretary appeared in the doorway, checking his watch meaningfully. "Sir, the car is ready for departure," the secretary announced. William handed Charlotte back to Kate reluctantly. "We'll continue this conversation when I get home. And if she's still having a rough day, we'll call Dr. Morrison together." Kate nodded, though she doubted the royal physician would have any new solutions. Some problems couldn't be solved with medical expertise or royal protocol. After William left, Kate found herself wandering the palace with Charlotte, trying different rooms and different positions. George was at his morning lessons with his tutor, leaving Kate alone with her crying daughter and her growing sense of inadequacy. She tried the music room, hoping the grand piano might provide soothing sounds. Charlotte's cries echoed off the ornate walls, making them seem even louder. Kate attempted to play a simple lullaby one-handed while holding the baby, but Charlotte only cried harder at the music. The morning room was next, with its sunny yellow walls and comfortable seating. Kate settled into a chair by the window, hoping natural light might help. Charlotte calmed for a few minutes, looking around at the bright space with interest, but soon resumed crying. "Maybe she's overstimulated," Kate murmured to herself, remembering something from a parenting book about babies needing quiet, dim spaces when they were upset. She made her way to the smaller sitting room that she and William used for private conversations. The room was decorated simply, with family photos and comfortable furniture that felt more like a real home than the formal rooms used for official functions. Charlotte's cries softened as they entered the quieter space. Kate sat in the rocking chair William had insisted on placing by the window, beginning a gentle motion that seemed to help slightly. A soft knock on the door interrupted the relative peace. Kate looked up to see one of the housekeeping staff, a young woman named Emma who had worked at the palace for several months. "Excuse me, Your Highness," Emma said hesitantly. "I was wondering if you might need anything. Some tea, perhaps." Kate realized that Charlotte's crying had probably echoed through much of the palace, disturbing everyone's work. She felt embarrassed that her personal struggles were becoming a household disruption. "Thank you, Emma, but I think we're managing," Kate replied, though Charlotte's renewed wails suggested otherwise. Emma lingered in the doorway, looking genuinely concerned rather than merely polite. If I may say so, Your Highness, my nephew went through something similar when he was born. Sometimes babies just need to cry it out. Kate looked at the young woman with surprise. Most staff members offered only formal pleasantries, avoiding personal observations about the royal family's private moments. Cried out, Kate asked. But that seems so harsh. Not abandoning her, Emma clarified quickly. But sometimes trying too hard to stop the crying makes it worse. My sister learned to just hold him and let him get it out of his system. Kate considered this. Every parenting expert had advised against letting babies cry, emphasizing the importance of responding immediately to their needs. But what if the need was simply to cry? How long did it last? Kate asked. About 6 weeks, Emma said. And then, one day he just stopped, like he'd worked through whatever was bothering him. 6 weeks felt like an eternity, but it also offered hope that this phase would eventually end. Kate had been thinking of Charlotte's crying as a problem to solve, but maybe it was just something to endure with patience and love. Thank you for telling me that, Kate said sincerely. Emma smiled and quietly left, but her words stayed with Kate as she continued rocking Charlotte. Instead of trying desperately to stop the crying, Kate focused on simply being present with her daughter through whatever she was experiencing. The change in approach was subtle but significant. Kate's shoulders relaxed, and she stopped trying different positions and techniques every few minutes. Charlotte continued crying, but Kate noticed that her own stress level decreased when she stopped fighting against it. Around noon, Kate's phone rang. She saw that it was her mother and considered not answering, but Carol Middleton had a way of knowing exactly when her daughter needed support. Hello, Mom, Kate answered, still rocking Charlotte. How are you holding up, darling? Carol asked immediately, clearly hearing the baby crying in the background. Barely, Kate admitted. She's been like this on and off for days. I'm starting to think I'm doing something wrong. Oh, Kate, Carol said with understanding. You're not doing anything wrong. Some babies are just more sensitive than others. Did I cry like this? Kate asked. Carol laughed softly. You were an angel compared to James. That boy cried for 3 months straight. I thought I was losing my mind. Kate felt a spark of recognition. James said something similar last night. James. Kate realized she had mentioned her conversation with the guard without thinking. One of the security staff. He told me his sister went through the same thing. There was a pause on the other end of the line. You were talking to security staff about Charlotte's crying? Kate heard the surprise in her mother's voice and felt defensive. It was the middle of the night, and he was kind. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who doesn't have opinions about how the royal children should be raised. I didn't mean it as criticism, Carol said quickly. I think it's wonderful that you found someone to talk to. I just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself too. I'm trying, Kate said, feeling tears again. But I feel so isolated sometimes. Like I can't admit that this is hard without disappointing everyone. Kate, listen to me, Carol said firmly. Being a mother is the hardest thing you'll ever do, regardless of your circumstances. The crown doesn't make babies cry less or give you superhuman patience. But everyone expects me to handle it perfectly, Kate protested. Everyone expects you to be human, Carol corrected. And humans struggle sometimes. That's not a failure. It's normal. Kate found herself crying along with Charlotte, finally, releasing some of the pressure she had been carrying. Would you like me to come over? Carol offered. I could hold Charlotte for a while so you can have a proper shower and some lunch. Would you? Kate asked gratefully. I'll be there in an hour, Carol promised. After hanging up, Kate felt some relief at the prospect of reinforcement. But she also felt guilty for needing help. Shouldn't she be able to handle one baby on her own? Charlotte's cries had settled into a tired rhythm, and Kate noticed that the baby's eyes were growing heavy despite her distress. Maybe Emma had been right about letting her work through whatever was bothering her. It's okay, sweetheart, Kate murmured, kissing Charlotte's forehead. We don't have to figure everything out right now. The words were as much for herself as for Charlotte. Maybe motherhood wasn't about having all the answers immediately. Maybe it was about learning patience and trusting that both of them would find their way together. When Carol arrived, she took one look at Kate and wrapped both her daughter and granddaughter in a warm embrace. You're doing beautifully, Carol said simply. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. For the first time in days, Kate believed that might actually be true. Charlotte was still crying, but Somehow that felt less like a catastrophe and more like a phase they would navigate together as a family. Outside, she could see James making his afternoon rounds, a reminder that kindness could come from unexpected places. The palace felt less isolating when she remembered that it was filled with real people who understood real struggles. Kate settled in to feed Charlotte, finally, ready to accept that some days would be harder than others. And that was perfectly normal for any mother, royal or otherwise. In the grand corridors of Kensington Palace, where every whisper echoes through centuries of tradition, a young mother struggles with something no royal protocol could prepare her for. Behind the golden gates and careful smiles, Princess Catherine faces sleepless nights that would break any ordinary person. When her daughter's endless tears threaten to shatter the perfect image the world expects, Kate finds herself turning to the most unexpected ally, a palace guard who understands that sometimes the crown weighs heaviest in the quiet moments when nobody is watching. The rain drummed against the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Catherine sat in the nursery, her shoulders trembling with exhaustion. Princess Charlotte had been crying for 3 hours straight, and nothing Kate tried seemed to work. The tiny infant's wails echoed through the ornate room, bouncing off the hand-painted walls that depicted fairy tale scenes meant to bring joy and wonder. Kate pulled her silk robe tighter around her body and lifted Charlotte from the crib once again. Her arms ached from hours of rocking, bouncing, and walking the length of the nursery. The princess had tried everything: feeding, changing, singing, even playing the classical music that usually soothed the baby. Nothing worked. "Please, sweetheart," Kate whispered, her voice cracking with fatigue. "Mummy needs you to sleep just a little bit." But Charlotte only cried harder, her face red and scrunched with whatever discomfort plagued her small body. Kate felt tears forming in her own eyes as she wondered what she was doing wrong. The parenting books and royal nannies had prepared her for many things, but they never mentioned nights like this. Down the hall, William slept peacefully in their bedroom. He had an early morning engagement with veterans, and Kate insisted he get his rest. George was finally sleeping after his own bedtime struggles, and Kate didn't want to wake either of them. The palace felt enormous and empty around her, despite housing dozens of staff members who were probably trying to sleep through Charlotte's cries. Kate walked to the window, gently bouncing Charlotte as she looked out at the dark grounds. The security lights illuminated the manicured gardens, and she could see the outline of a guard making his rounds near the main entrance. For a moment, she envied his simple duty, walking a predictable path, following clear procedures, knowing exactly what was expected of him. Being a mother felt nothing like that. Every day brought new challenges that no amount of royal training had covered. Kate had mastered the art of public speaking, learned proper protocol for state dinners, and could navigate complex political conversations with foreign dignitaries. But a crying baby had defeated her completely. Charlotte's wails grew more desperate, and Kate felt her own composure crumbling. She had been the perfect princess for years, always smiling, always graceful, always saying the right thing. The public saw her as the ideal mother, the woman who made royal life look effortless. If they could see her now, disheveled and crying alongside her infant daughter, what would they think? "I don't know what to do," Kate admitted to the empty room, her voice barely audible over Charlotte's crying. "I'm supposed to know, but I don't." She tried nursing again, but Charlotte pushed away, her tiny fists batting at Kate's chest. The diaper was clean, the room temperature perfect, and there were no obvious signs of illness. Kate had called the royal physician twice already that week, but Dr. Morrison assured her that some babies simply had difficult periods of adjustment. Adjustment to what? Kate had asked during their last conversation. "To being alive, Your Highness," the elderly doctor had said gently. "Sometimes the world feels overwhelming to such a small person." Kate understood that feeling more than she cared to admit. The world often felt overwhelming to her too, even as a grown woman with every advantage imaginable. The constant scrutiny, the pressure to be perfect, the knowledge that every mistake would be analyzed and criticized by millions of people, it was enough to make anyone want to cry. She tried a different rocking rhythm, swaying from side to side instead of front to back. Charlotte's cries softened for a moment, giving Kate hope. But then, resumed with renewed intensity. Kate closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to summon patience she didn't feel. The nursery door opened quietly, and Kate turned to see Mrs. Patterson, the night nanny, peering in with concern. The older woman had been with the royal household for 15 years and had helped raise several aristocratic children. "Your Highness, perhaps I could try for a while," Mrs. Patterson offered, her voice kind but professional. Kate hesitated. Every instinct told her to hand over Charlotte and collapse into bed, but another part of her resisted. She was Charlotte's mother. Shouldn't she be able to comfort her own child? "I can manage," Kate said, though her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Mrs. Patterson stepped into the room, her experienced eyes taking in Kate's exhausted state and Charlotte's distress. "Sometimes babies sense their mother's tension, Your Highness. When we're upset, they become more upset." The words stung, though Kate knew they weren't meant to hurt. Was she making things worse by trying so hard? Was her own frustration feeding Charlotte's distress? "I just want to be a good mother," Kate said, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "You are a good mother," Mrs. Patterson assured her. "But even good mothers need help sometimes." Kate looked down at Charlotte, whose face was blotchy and wet with tears that matched her own. The tiny princess wore a pale pink sleeper with the royal monogram embroidered on the chest, a reminder that even in her most vulnerable moments, she was part of something larger than a normal family. "Maybe just for an hour," Kate finally agreed, carefully transferring Charlotte to Mrs. Patterson's experienced arms. The nanny immediately began a gentle swaying motion that was subtly different from Kate's attempts. Charlotte's cries didn't stop immediately, but they seemed less frantic. "Try to rest, Your Highness," Mrs. Patterson said softly. "Babies know when their mothers are at the end of their rope." Kate nodded and headed toward the door, but Charlotte's renewed wailing stopped her. She turned back to see the infant reaching toward her with tiny, desperate hands. Even Mrs. Patterson's skilled care couldn't calm her completely. "She wants her mummy," Mrs. Patterson observed with a gentle smile. "That's actually a very good thing, Your Highness." Kate returned and took Charlotte back, feeling the baby settle slightly against her familiar scent and heartbeat. It wasn't immediate quiet, but Charlotte's cries became less desperate, more tired than distressed. "Perhaps some fresh air?" Mrs. Patterson suggested. "The gardens are lovely even at night, and sometimes a change of scenery helps." Kate considered this. The idea of leaving the nursery felt both appealing and terrifying. What if someone saw her wandering the palace grounds with a crying baby in the middle of the night? What if photographers were hiding in the bushes? What if Charlotte got cold? But the nursery felt like a prison of failure, and Kate desperately needed to escape its walls. She wrapped Charlotte in a soft cashmere blanket and headed for the private garden entrance that the family used for casual walks. The night air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of roses and lavender from the palace gardens. Kate breathed deeply for the first time in hours, feeling some of the tension leave her shoulders. Charlotte's cries softened as they moved along the garden path, perhaps distracted by the new sounds and sensations. Kate found herself walking toward the main courtyard, following the same route she took during daytime strolls with the children. The palace looked different at night, more mysterious and romantic, less like a workplace and more like the fairy tale castle people imagined it to be. As she rounded the corner near the guard station, Kate heard footsteps on gravel. She froze, suddenly, conscious of how she must look, hair tangled, still in her robe, and slippers, carrying a crying baby. The last thing she needed was to encounter a staff member who would feel obligated to report her midnight wandering to the private secretary. A figure emerged from the shadows near the entrance gate. Kate recognized him as one of the younger guards, though she didn't know his name. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with kind eyes that seemed genuinely concerned rather than judgmental. "Your Highness," he said quietly, offering a respectful nod. "Is everything all right?" Kate felt fresh tears threatening. Everything was clearly not all right, and there was no point pretending otherwise. "Princess Charlotte won't stop crying," Kate said simply, too tired for royal formality. "We've been at this for hours." The guard looked at the baby with genuine sympathy rather than the careful professionalism most staff members displayed around the royal children. My sister went through the same thing with her youngest, he offered. Some babies just have their days and nights mixed up for a while. Kate was surprised by his casual tone. Most guards maintained strict professional distance, speaking only when spoken to and offering brief, formal responses. This young man seemed genuinely human in a way that felt refreshing. Really? Kate asked, desperate for any reassurance that this wasn't her failure as a mother. Oh yes, the guard continued, falling into step beside her as she continued walking. Little Sarah screamed for 3 months straight. My sister thought she was losing her mind. Turned out the baby just needed to be in constant motion. They practically lived in the car for a while. Charlotte's cries had indeed softened during their walk, though she still fussed against Kate's shoulder. I'm James, by the way, the guard said. James Mitchell. I've been with the household for about 2 years. Kate realized she had never learned the names of most of the security staff. They were always simply the guards in her mind, professional and interchangeable. She felt a pang of guilt about this oversight. Thank you, James, she said, for not making me feel like a terrible mother. James looked genuinely surprised. Terrible mother? Your Highness, you're out here at 3 a.m. trying everything you can think of to comfort your daughter. That's what good mothers do. They had reached the fountain in the center of the courtyard, and Kate sat down on the stone bench nearby. The sound of flowing water seemed to capture Charlotte's attention, and her cries reduced to occasional hiccups and whimpers. May I? James asked, gesturing toward the bench. Kate nodded, grateful for the company. James sat at a respectful distance, but his presence felt comforting rather than intrusive. The fountain helps, he observed as Charlotte's breathing began to even out. White noise, Kate said, remembering something from one of her parenting books. Babies find it soothing because it reminds them of the sounds in the womb. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching Charlotte's eyelids grow heavy. Kate felt her own exhaustion catching up with her as the adrenaline of the crisis began to fade. Can I ask you something? Kate said quietly. Of course, Your Highness. Do you ever feel like you're pretending to be someone you're not? James considered this carefully. I think everyone feels that way sometimes. But, from what I've observed, you're not pretending anything. You're just being human. Kate looked down at Charlotte, who was finally sleeping peacefully against her chest. The baby's face was still blotchy from crying, but she looked angelic in the moonlight. The papers always write about how natural I am with children, Kate said. How I make motherhood look effortless. If they could see me tonight, they'd see a mother who loves her daughter enough to walk around a palace courtyard at 3 a.m, James finished. That's not something to be ashamed of. Kate felt tears again, but these were different, tears of relief rather than frustration. My mom used to tell me that the hardest part of being a parent isn't the crying or the sleepless nights, James continued. It's feeling like you're supposed to have all the answers when nobody actually does. Your mother sounds wise, Kate said. She was. Lost her when I was 17, but I remember that conversation clearly. My sister had just brought her first baby home, and Mum found her sobbing in the kitchen because she couldn't